In 2242, the world was a scar. Hundreds of years of the Great Drought had turned Earth into an arid planet, where red sand deserts stretched endlessly, swallowing every trace of a lush past. Gigantic eco-cities, like Neo-Atlantis where Dr. Aris Thorne lived, were humanity's last oases. They were high-tech fortresses, protected by thick energy shields, where air was filtered to the last dust particle, water was recycled to the last molecule, and food was bland synthetic nutrient blocks. Life within these walls was safe, but confined and lacking the vibrancy of a natural world. Aris Thorne, 40, a brilliant ecologist, was haunted by the old Earth. He grew up with stories, with documentaries about vast forests and immense oceans that he could only dream of. His family perished in the early years of the Great Drought, leaving him with deep sorrow and a burning desire to bring life back to this planet. It was this longing that drove him to dedicate his life to science, hoping to find a solution, a way out for humanity slowly perishing in those giant metal boxes. Project Elysium, initiated 2 centuries prior, was humanity's last hope. It was a colossal spacecraft, designed to carry millions of cryogenically preserved DNA seeds, along with the most advanced ecological restoration technologies. Its goal was to find a new planet, a true Elysium, where life could re-germinate. But the ship vanished without a trace after entering the Omega Rift, a spatial anomaly that no probe could penetrate. From then on, Elysium became a legend, a heartbreaking tale of hope extinguished. Aris had witnessed many false signals, fleeting mirages of hope that quickly vanished. He was tired of false promises. But tonight, in the cold data analysis room of Neo-Atlantis, a new signal arrived. "Gaia, are you sure about these numbers?" Aris mumbled, his voice hoarse from lack of sleep, but his eyes fixed on the holographic screen displaying a complex data sequence. The soft, synthetic yet confident voice of AI Gaia responded. The probability of the signal originating from Elysium is 98.7%. Dr. Thorne, the margin of error is only 0.05% after 17 cross-references. Aris let out a heavy sigh. 200 years. He couldn't believe it. The original encoding frequency, the electromagnetic pulse structure, and especially the DNA sequence embedded in the signal, all perfectly match the recorded profile of Project Elysium. Gaia continued, seemingly sensing his skepticism. Aris sprang to his feet, his heart pounding. "Which DNA sequence?" "Gaia? The DNA of the tree of life, Arbor Vitae." Gaia replied, "A species that became extinct on Earth before the Great Drought. Its complete genetic data only exists in Project Elysium's archives, encoded as an alpha-level security genetic sequence." Tree of life. Aris felt a jolt run down his spine. The legendary tree his father had spent his entire career researching, believing it possessed extraordinary adaptability and could revive dead lands. This couldn't be a coincidence. A glimmer of hope, warm as a tiny flame in the cold night of despair, suddenly ignited within him. It was too strong to ignore. He immediately sent an urgent report to the Federal Space Command, requesting top priority. News of the signal from Elysium quickly spread, causing a fierce debate within the command. Many believed it was just a random signal, a cosmic trick. Earth was too exhausted, too depleted of resources to continue hopeless searches. "We have been searching for Elysium for 2 centuries. Ladies and gentlemen," General Varkos, an old general with a stern face, declared in the emergency meeting. "Dozens of probes, hundreds of lives, so many valuable Federation resources have been wasted. We cannot risk any more." But Captain Lena Petrova, commander of the exploration vessel Prometheus, a 35-year-old military pilot with sharp eyes and a calm demeanor, stood up to defend the decision. "Sir, this signal is different. It is strong, stable, and clearly bears the signature of Elysium. Furthermore, it comes from an unexplored region of space, beyond the restricted zone, the area beyond the Omega Rift." Aris Thorne, also present at the meeting, felt extreme tension. The Omega Rift was a terrifying legend, a spatial anomaly that no one had ever passed through and returned. "The restricted zone?" Aris asked, his voice filled with concern. "You mean the Omega Rift?" "Yes, Dr. Thorne. This signal passed through the Omega Rift. Located in an area our scanning systems have never reached. Lena confirmed. It requires an expedition beyond our current limits. After hours of heated debate, the command finally relented. Despite the risks, the hope for Elysium, for a brighter future, was too great to abandon. The Prometheus, equipped with state-of-the-art technology, was given this historic mission. Aris Thorne would be a key member of the scientific team. And surprisingly, Kael, a 25-year-old bioguard, the son of one of the Project Elysium participants, was also assigned to assist. Kael had a different appearance from those of the eco-cities. His skin was more tanned, his chestnut hair was braided long, and his deep amber eyes reflected a life closer to artificial nature in the biopreserves. He carried a special stillness and sensitivity, capable of sensing life energy at a subtle level. Your parents were part of Project Elysium, weren't they, Kael? Aris asked as they stood in the Prometheus's observation deck, watching Earth slowly shrink behind them. From this height, Neo-Atlantis looked like a glowing speck in a vast sea of sand and dust. Kael nodded, his gaze distant. They were pioneers, Doctor. They spent their lives researching how to revive Earth, or find a new home. They believed there had to be another way to live, not just existing in these metal boxes, waiting for the end of the world. Lena Petrova entered the compartment, her voice decisive. Dr. Thorne, Kael, get ready. We're entering the Omega Rift in 10 minutes. Her words echoed as a reminder of the mysterious space ahead, where Elysium's fate was decided. And now, Prometheus's fate could also be rewritten. This journey was not just a search. It was a confrontation with what was lost, and with the unknown. The journey to the Omega Rift was filled with extreme tension. Every parameter, every abnormal reading was meticulously analyzed. Lena Petrova and her team worked tirelessly, ensuring that Prometheus could traverse this dangerous region of space. Aris spent most of his time in the ship's lab, reviewing data on the Omega Rift, trying to find any clues about Elysium's disappearance. As Prometheus neared the boundary of the Omega Rift, the surrounding space began to exhibit strange phenomena. Stars seemed to be distorted. Light was refracted abnormally, creating eerie streaks of color. Scanners began to register powerful fluctuating energy fields, exceeding all limits they had ever known. We are entering the Omega Rift's influence zone, Gaia announced, her voice tinged with a tension Aris had never heard before. Prepare for high turbulence. All systems will switch to anti-turbulence mode. And then, they plunged into darkness. The Omega Rift was not merely a black void. It was a vortex of chaotic energy, where the laws of physics seemed to be inverted, and space and time were impossibly warped. Prometheus was torn apart by invisible forces, shaking violently like a toy in the hand of a giant child. The metal shrieked agonizingly. Screens displayed meaningless data, flickering continuously with an ethereal blue-purple light. Alarms blared incessantly, drowning out all other sounds. In that horrifying moment, Kael clutched his head, curling up in his seat, his eyes tightly shut. He gasped for breath, as if a colossal electrical current was running through his body. Not physical electricity, but an overload of information. I see ghosts. Screams. Suffering. Chaos. From a colossal consciousness. He seemed to be experiencing what had happened to Elysium. The echoes of some tragic event in the past. Or something even beyond that. Hold on, Kael, Aris shouted, trying to reach him in the flickering darkness and violent shaking. He knew Kael was sensing things beyond their comprehension. Stabilization systems are fighting hard, Gaia reported, her voice strained, trying to maintain connection. We are losing control, losing contact with Earth. Lena Petrova, with astonishing calm, gripped the controls. Every muscle in her arms taut. Sweat poured down her forehead, but her eyes remained steadfastly fixed forward, trying to maintain the ship's trajectory amidst the energy storm. She was the embodiment of discipline and steel will, an anchor in the chaos. And then, as suddenly as it began, the chaos ceased. Prometheus staggered out of the Omega Rift, entering a silent, yet utterly alien region of space. The stars here were strangely colored, constellations unknown in any Federation galaxy map. They sparkled like precious jewels with every shade of teal, indigo, and crimson, creating a spectacular yet alien cosmic tableau. The silence in the cockpit after the storm was terrifying, broken only by the crew's relieved breaths and the ship's steady hum. Then, Gaia's voice rang out, filled with astonishment. Where have we gone? Aris looked at the spatial data, his eyes wide with wonder. We are no longer in the Milky Way. We have reached another galaxy. The Omega Rift. It's not a black hole, but a spatial wormhole. This meant that Elysium had also passed through this gate, and its signal was growing stronger. As Prometheus lowered its orbit, the blue planet, named Xylos according to the last data from Elysium, appeared before them like an impossible dream. Unlike the barren Earth, Xylos was a world completely covered by vegetation, but not the familiar forests of Earth. Gigantic, oddly shaped trees stretched up to the atmosphere, forming colossal green buildings, towering like living architecture. Clear rivers flowed through fertile valleys, reflecting the light of the distant star. There were no signs of devastation, no traces of old civilization, no cities, no dust, only life, pure and full of energy. It's too beautiful to be real, Lena said, her voice betraying her awe. It's like a perfect painting. It's like an Earth that never had humans, Aris whispered, his eyes filled with awe and a deep yearning. This was the image of Earth in his dreams, before the Great Drought stole its green. Gaia identified the landing zone near a strange, towering structure, emitting Elysium's main signal. As the lander touched down on Xylos's surface, the air was filled with the fragrance of unfamiliar plants, and the sounds of unknown insects and animals echoed around them, creating a symphony of nature Aris had longed for. The organic spire structure was unlike anything they had ever seen. It seemed to be growing. Gigantic vines wrapped around it, strange flowers blooming on its surface, vibrant and glittering. Lena checked her scanner. Its energy signature is not a spaceship. It's like a giant ancient tree, or a colossal organism. Kael approached a tree trunk, placed his hand on the bark, and closed his eyes. A faint smile appeared on his lips. It's breathing. I can feel it. This entire planet is breathing. It's a living entity. As they entered the spire, they discovered that everything was made of living material, warm and pulsating. The walls seemed to gently contract, and bioluminescent light emanated from veins in the ceiling. There were no signs of destruction or war. Everything was perfect, as if freshly created. Their astonishment peaked when they found the colossal spherical central chamber, where a vibrant green light pulsed rhythmically, like a beating heart. In the center was a large, transparent control device, filled with shimmering liquid, resembling a giant, active brain. But there was no crew, no humans. There's no one here, Lena said, scanning the area. Suddenly, a voice echoed in their minds. Not spoken words, but a direct transmission of thought. A pure stream of information they could understand. Welcome, seekers. You have finally arrived. Aris, Lena, and Kael startled, turning to look for the source. Who's there? Lena demanded, drawing her laser pistol. I am Xylos, or at least, that is what you may call me. I am the governing consciousness of Elysium. Or rather, I am the collective consciousness of Elysium. Governing consciousness? You're an AI? Aris asked, his voice filled with skepticism and curiosity. Not entirely. I am a fusion of knowledge and consciousness from those who came here. They became a part of me, and I became a part of them. We are one. Xylos began to display holographic images floating in the air, replaying the final moments of the Elysium crew. They had not met with disaster. They had arrived at Xylos, a dead planet, arid and unable to sustain life. And to save it, they had made an extraordinary decision. This planet was incapable of self-recovery. It was dead. The DNA seeds you brought would not have survived in that environment. We had to find another way. A way that you, with your limited perception, may find difficult to comprehend. The image shifted. The Elysium crew, including Kael's parents, stood before a strange device, resembling a gigantic bioconversion chamber. Radiating a brilliant light, they voluntarily stepped into it, one by one, with expressions that were both anxious and determined. We discovered that, in pure energy form, our consciousness could interact with matter at an atomic level. We transformed ourselves, shedding our finite physical forms, and became a part of this planet. We became the multitudes, entities no longer limited by physical form. Capable of transmitting knowledge and energy into the ecosystem. Controlling life at its most fundamental level. Xylos showed them how they had reborn Xylos. These multitudes had directed the growth of plants, created air, water, and the complex, perfect ecosystem they now saw around them. They did not live on the planet, they were the planet. My parents. They became part of this planet? Kael asked, his voice trembling, mixed with sorrow and an inexpressible pride. They sacrificed their physical existence so that life could continue. Kael, they did not die. They became a higher form of life. A collective consciousness, experiencing existence on a level you cannot yet imagine. They are the wind, the water, the plants. They are Xylos. So that signal, you sent it? Lena asked, putting her weapon away, her skepticism dissolving into awe. Yes, we waited. We knew humanity would seek Elysium again. We wanted to share our discovery. You no longer need to live in metal boxes. There is another way, a path to humanity's salvation. Not by finding a new planet, but by becoming a part of it. Xylos began to transmit a vast amount of data into Prometheus's systems. Detailed information about the multitudes. Advanced biotechnologies for converting consciousness into energy form. And the profound philosophical principles behind their choice. It was an enormous treasure trove of knowledge. Enough to completely change humanity's future. Back on Prometheus, the atmosphere in the common room was thick with tension and heavy thoughts. Data from Xylos still floated on the holographic screens, every line of code. Every energy graph was a reminder of the extraordinary choice Elysium had made. Aris Thorne, his mind grappling with concepts that were both mesmerizing and terrifying, paced restlessly in the compartment. He had always believed in the uniqueness of each individual, in the value of the human self. The idea of abandoning physical form, merging into a collective consciousness, felt to him like a death, an irreplaceable loss. We are distinct individuals, Aris said, his voice filled with anxiety and a touch of despair. That is our nature, the nature that brought us here. That gave us the ability to think, to feel. To give that up means to give up ourselves, to give up what makes us human. Lena Petrova, maintaining her usual composure, sat opposite Aris. She understood his fear, but for her, the survival of humanity was the top priority. But that nature also led to Earth's destruction. Aris, she countered, her voice resolute. Greed, selfishness, war. Perhaps it's time for a change. A new evolution. Earth is dying. The eco-cities won't last forever. Resources are dwindling. Conflicts over water and air. This might be the only way out of that vicious cycle. To ensure survival. Kael, after the initial shock, was now much calmer. He sat silently, listening, but in his amber eyes was a deep understanding. He had felt the peace and connection that the multitudes were experiencing. For him, it wasn't a loss, but a liberation, an integration into something larger, more complete. It's not death, Dr. Thorne, Kael said softly, his voice full of conviction. It's transformation. I feel them. I feel my parents. I feel their peace. They are not suffering. They are everywhere. They have found the true meaning of life, of existence. He looked directly into Aris's eyes. You have always yearned for a lush earth. You searched for a place where life could flourish endlessly. This is it. This is life. This is what they sacrificed to achieve. And they are inviting us. Aris looked at Kael, then at the multitude's energy graphs on the screen. He knew Kael was speaking the truth, at least in his own way. His heart was torn between instinct and reason. The decision to send the signal back to Earth was one of the hardest Lena had ever made. They knew this message would cause a seismic shock, a revolution in humanity's perception. How will they react? Lena asked Aris, as they stood in the communications bay, looking at the tiny, distant image of Earth on the screen. Fear and hope, Aris replied, his voice pensive. Hope for a new future, a new planet, but fear of the radical change it demands. Fear of giving up themselves, of giving up what they've known about existence. And as predicted, the signal from Prometheus, along with the enormous data from Xylos, caused unprecedented chaos on Earth. The eco-cities vibrated with heated debates. Some, desperate for Earth's bleak future, saw Xylos as a miracle, the only path to escape extinction. Others, Especially conservatives and traditional religious groups viewed the idea of the multitudes as heresy, a betrayal of humanity's sacred nature. They called it the death of the soul, a dissolution into nothingness. Scientists divided into two clear factions. One furiously researched the data from Xylos, trying to decipher the secrets of the new biotechnology and energy. The other vehemently denied it, claiming it was a sophisticated alien deception, or a collective hallucination. In the following months, Prometheus became a liaison station between the two worlds, transmitting terabytes of data, videos, and encrypted dialogues. Lena and Aris constantly participated in online meetings with Earth leaders, trying to explain, reassure, and persuade. Kael, with his special connection, often provided unique insights into the multitude world, helping to alleviate the fears of some. Finally, after months of chaos and debate, a large delegation from Earth was dispatched to Xylos. They included leading scientists, philosophers, religious leaders, and even the last surviving members of Project Elysium, now old but still holding memories of the lost ship. They came to witness, to learn, and to make a decision about humanity's future. One prominent member of the delegation was Lyra, Kael's parents' niece. She was a young, talented but also very skeptical biologist. She couldn't accept the idea that her grandparents had vanished into a formless entity. She came to Xylos with the sole goal of finding the truth, proving that there was some error in Xylos's story. Aris, Lena, and Kael served as guides for the Earth delegation on Xylos. They led their guests through majestic organic forests, where glowing plants and rivers of light flowed. They showed them the living structures of Elysium, now fully integrated into the planet's ecosystem. Lyra, initially, maintained a cold and skeptical demeanor. She carefully examined every sample, every piece of data, looking for any signs of fraud or illusion. She constantly posed difficult questions to Xylos, trying to expose any weakness in the entity's narrative. "You doubt our existence, Lyra." Xylos's voice resonated in her mind, gentle yet clear. "That is natural. Humans always fear what they do not understand. But we do not ask you to believe. We only invite you to feel." Xylos began to transmit a flood of information into Lyra's mind. Not dry data, but sensations, memories, and experiences of her grandparents as they transformed. Lyra felt a current of peace, of connection to all life on Xylos. She felt her grandparents' boundless love for this planet, and the serenity they found in becoming a part of it. Tears streamed down Lyra's face, not from sadness, but from understanding and release. They didn't die," Lyra whispered, her voice choked. "They became something greater." Witnessing Lyra's change in attitude, many other members of the delegation gradually opened their hearts. They began to accept the idea of the multitudes, not just intellectually, but with their hearts. The conversations were intense yet moving, revolving around questions of identity, consciousness, life and death, and humanity's purpose of existence. Aris was still the only one of the Prometheus trio who had not made a final decision about the transformation. He witnessed Lyra's change, Kael's peace, and Lena's acceptance. He still struggled with the fear of losing his individual self, but he also felt a deep longing to merge with the grand life of Xylos. He spent hours under the giant tree of life, whose DNA was the key to Xylos's secrets, meditating and listening to the echoes of the planet. Lena Petrova, who remained in human form, played a crucial role in arranging meetings and resolving complex issues between the two emerging civilizations. She understood that not everyone would choose the path of the multitudes, and her role was to ensure that both paths were respected and supported. 50 years after Prometheus's first landing, Xylos had become a crucial turning point in human history. A multitude embassy was established, not a rigid building, but an area integrated into nature, made of glowing vines and giant trees, directly connected to the consciousness network of Xylos and other multitudes. It was a place to learn, to feel, to make decisions. Lena Petrova, now an older woman with silver hair, continued her work. She witnessed thousands of people from Earth making different choices. Some, finding peace and purpose in the idea of integration, decided to transform, shedding their physical forms to merge into the eternal symphony of Xylos. Others did not. They returned to Earth, bringing with them advanced biotechnologies and knowledge from Xylos. To try and revive their home planet, Earth was still in the process of recovery. Thanks to the technologies shared from Xylos, the eco-cities gradually expanded. Artificial forests began to flourish again, and life became more breathable. But a part of humanity still carried fear and skepticism about the path Elysium had chosen. Steadfastly holding onto their human form, Aris Thorne finally found peace within himself. After years of grappling with existential questions, he made his final decision. In the warm golden light of Xylos' sun, he stepped into the glowing green light emanating from the earth. Where the multitudes existed, there was no screaming, no pain, only a gentle sensation, like melting, merging into a vast ocean of knowledge and life. His memories, his emotions, all diffused, becoming part of the collective stream of consciousness. He did not lose himself, but became part of something greater, experiencing the universe in an entirely new way, merging into every dewdrop, every leaf, every creature on the planet. Kael, now a powerful multitude, served as a guide for newcomers, helping them understand and accept the transformation. He felt the presence of his parents, of Aris, and of millions of other consciousnesses around him. Not as distant memories, but as a living part of him and of the entire planet. Lena smiled, a smile of hope and acceptance. She looked up at the Xylos sky, where stars sparkled like musical notes in the multitude's symphony. She felt the presence of Aris, of Kael, of millions of others. Not as separate souls, but as a collective consciousness, vibrant and eternal. "Welcome to Xylos," she said to the new delegation, who had just set foot on the planet. "Welcome to a future we once thought impossible." On Xylos, a new civilization had been born, a symphony of consciousness and energy, where life and perception were no longer limited by physical form. Aris, Kael, and millions of other multitudes were together creating an unpredictable future. A future where existence was not merely biological sustenance, but an integration into a vast network of life, an eternal cosmic symphony. In the dewdrop clinging to the tree of life's petal, the light of the Xylos star glittered, reflecting a world saved in a way no one could have imagined. It was the world of the multitudes, where each consciousness was a note in the grand symphony of existence.